It's August and Halloween comes early this year. We have to talk about dragons, vampires, ghosts and a whole lot of murder. So let's dive right in and wrap up July. Let's come out of the gate swinging with the first book. It is Fourth Ring. If you don't know, Fourth Ring has been the book hype of the year. And it has been a lot. There was screaming, there was pining, there was lusting after male characters, there were people declaring it was their new religion. But is it worth the hype? Personally, I would say no, it isn't. Now, hear me out. I did enjoy my read of Fourth Ring. It is a decent fantasy novel. It's also a romance novel, and this is where one of my biggest criticisms of this book is situated. It is not because there is a love interest or because there were smutty scenes, no. It is because the main female character, who is lusting after the main male character, has to repeat it every 20 pages. I mean, we get it. He's muscular, he smells like mint, he wears leather, and you want to climb him like a tree. We get it, but stop. Please stop repeating it every time you see him. By the middle of the book, it was grating my nerves, and by the end, I was fed up with it. And I get it, romance is not my preferred genre, so maybe that's why I'm immune to those things. I don't know. If this is your thing, if you love romance, if you love all of the pining and desiring, then by all means, this is a book for you. Now, from a fantasy perspective, it wasn't all that bad. And it did a few things very well, in my opinion. One very clever thing was how Rebecca Yarros, the author, introduced new elements of lore and world building to us. Instead of going for a long Silmarillion-like Bible-style exposé, she fed us little tidbits now and then through lessons, through books, through memories. And it worked really, really well. Lore, especially if you're introducing a new world and new books, can be a little bit daunting, but it never felt overwhelming in this book, which was really, really well done. And the story is quite decent as well. I enjoyed it. Sometimes a little bit predictable, but then again, which fantasy book is not? The book ends with a plot twist, quite enjoyable really, and I will be picking up part 2 because I want to know, I'm invested in this story, I want to know how it continues. Fourth Ring for me is one of those books the hype does a discredit to. People will go in with mountain high expectations and the book will not really deliver on those. Which is a shame because it is not a bad fantasy book. So if you love dragons or you love romantasy, then this is the book for you. Just lower your expectations and be pleasantly surprised, I guess. First book I read this month was Fourth Ring by Rebecca Yarros. Second book I read last month was a pleasant surprise actually, and possibly a new favorite author. I'm talking about this one, Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Now, if you've been watching this channel, you know I'm a bit indecisive about books that have this cozy vibe. While I really enjoy the vibe as is, I find these books lack often in story or character depth. But not this one. This might be the first cozy book that I read that is actually a good story with interesting characters. We meet Wallace Price, a very successful lawyer and a total bastard. He has no empathy whatsoever, doesn't understand that people have needs, and really is only in it for himself. His marriage failed, but he couldn't care less. He's the kind of guy that would probably kick a puppy if it was in his way. And then Wallace dies. Now Wallace is a ghost and he isn't really ready to transcend to the next level just yet. So he decides to hang about a little while longer and stays at Yarros, a little cozy tea shop run by Hugo and a myriad of very, very lovable characters. From there on we get a very cozy, warm, interesting Christmas Carol-like story. It is a story about death and how it impacts people in various ways. But it is also a story that celebrates life and love. It is funny, it is emotional, and I might have shed a little tear. I picked it up on a whim and I regretted not a single moment of it. It was a very nice surprise and I will be reading more of TJ Klune's books very soon. So, second book I read last month was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. What would happen if you take 12 rather known authors from all kinds of genres and ask them to write their own story with a very celebrated and loved character? Then you get Marple. Marple is a series of short stories written by 12 different authors. And there are some very well-known names in that list. Lee Bardugo, Natalie Haynes, Val McDermott. Writers from all kinds of genres. Having been asked to rewrite or come up with a new story using the very loved character of Miss Marple. Now, when I picked up this book, I thought this can go either horribly wrong or very, very well. It felt very refreshing to see a very well-known, well-loved character like Miss Marple reimagined by a whole plethora of different authors. Some of the authors even do a great job of making the story their own. Natalie Haynes, for example. We know her best from her Greek mythology retellings, and she manages to make this Miss Marple story a very Greek dramatic kind of murder. A lot of the stories wink and reference old Miss Marple stories or place her in an entirely new environment. Miss Marple travels the world in this one, but the different authors always stay true to her shrewd nature and being a keen observer. Gossip is still one of the best ways to gather clues. It really feels like a collection of Miss Marple short stories. So if you're an Agatha Christie fan or like Miss Marple or just want some murder mystery short stories, do pick this one up. It was a very fun, quick read and I enjoyed it quite a lot. So, third book I read last month was Marple, 12 short stories by 12 different authors. And then the fourth and last book on the list for this month is a bit of a special case. It isn't really a book, although you can find it on Goodreads. It isn't really an audiobook, although you can listen to it on Audible. I guess you could call it a radio drama? Anyway, I still say it counts, and it is Impact Winter by Travis Beacham. The year is 2042 and a giant comet has hit the Earth. While there were wildfires and earthquakes and tsunamis at first, the real disaster happened afterwards. All of the dust, all of the ash blackens out the sun and a new, almost ice age appears. And now the sun is much weaker than usual, the things that normally hide in the shadows go bump. Vampires have always been amongst us, but now in this new darker world, they are the true overlords. You can call Impact Winter post-apocalyptical, you can call Impact Winter dystopian, but I prefer to call it gothic, because it does really ask that very gothic question: who is the monster and who is the man? It's a very well-produced audio drama and I absolutely loved it. I do agree this has to be your cup of tea, because it is not just fully narrated, but it has a full cast. It has audio effects, it has a soundtrack, it has everything. It is like watching a Netflix series, but on your headphones. And the cast is amazing. One of the male leads is Liam Cunningham, whom you might know from shows like Game of Thrones. He has this very deep, raspy voice that I absolutely adore. And then there's Indira Varma, whom you might also know from Game of Thrones or shows like Luther. It is an absolute celebrity top cast and I adored Impact Winter. It makes me long for Halloween and more gloomy dark times again. I will say, because of the sound effects, it might just give you some jump scares. So don't listen to it when you're out alone in the woods, like I did. Impact Winter is an Audible-only audio show, but I believe you can purchase some audio CDs as well if you like. So I will link it down below in the description so you can have a look for yourself. So, fourth and last item on our list that I read last month was Impact Winter by Travis Beacham. Now I want to hear from you. What was your favorite read last month? Did you read something I should look at? Or perhaps something that is just not worth the time? Let me know down below in the comments. I will talk books some more. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do click that like button, do subscribe, and if you need some more recommendations, you can always go here.